Everyone, welcome to another episode of Not Black and White, where we discuss everything and anything with quite a lot of nuance and opinion and maybe some debate depending on what's going around. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the world right now. And we have, I guess, Barbie. And could you give me your last name, please?
Yeah, Weisserman.
Barbie Weisserman.
Yep.
And from my understanding, you have a political science degree.
Yeah, I have a minor in political science with a push toward, I guess I wasn't, okay, political grooming. I have worked with a number of politicians on their delivery, taking off the tie, rolling up their sleeves, that kind of a thing. So, yeah, my major was kind of a double major. So major was in theater, started off in communications, started off in journalism, as a matter of fact. And I know I got fired from that field. Anyways, that's another story. But yeah, political advising, preparedness, and that kind of a thing. So, yes.
Okay. So we're working basically people who want to work in politics and showing them how to kind of craft an image, perhaps.
Yeah. Or catching them when they do something and go, yeah. Offering advice after the fact to two presidential candidates and a congressman. So the two presidential candidates didn't get in, but they listened to the advice as well as the congressman who did get in. So
maybe third time presidential candidates to charm.
That's exactly right. I'll have to sit down with President Trump on that one.
How many times did Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden run? They ran Hillary Clinton ran two times at least, right?
For president?
Yeah.
She put her name, when she was in the primaries, yeah. And then Biden, I don't know.
I think he's ran this is at least the second time he's ran.
It's three times. It's three times.
Three times. There we go.
It's the charm.
Yeah, he ran in 88 and he got in trouble for the plagiarism and then he dropped out. And then he ran, I think, in 08 or anyway, he failed against Obama.
Yep.
And then the third time was a charm.
Yes, I do remember.
More votes than Obama. So I think that's pretty hilarious.
There are more Americans now. There's a larger American population than Obama. So than the Obama years. I mean, in 8 years or whatever. Yeah. So go figure.
I mean, it's really crazy because Joe Biden's a motherfucker. You know, he does not relent. He wanted to become president a long time ago and ran 3 times. I mean, when I saw his speech, the first one he gave, that's I was like, okay, yeah, here we go. Because I could just see the way he looks in the camera. Like, this is a very experienced politician. This is someone who really knows how to sell a message and really get to your emotions. And I could know it's very calculated with him.
Okay.
Every word served a purpose. It was actually quite brilliant. Donald Trump from the hip, just winging it. That's what I sense.
Are you talking about his first speech when he was running for president? I'm assuming you're not meaning when he was inaugurated. But are you?
His first speech when he became the nominee in the primary.
Okay, gotcha.
The one that I watched and very well delivered.
Oh, it's very well rehearsed. He's very polished. He is the career politician.
He's an experienced politician.
He's the quintessential of the career politician. And I think that became the evidence between the two of them, or what became very evident, the difference between the two of them was the first presidential debate, when it was clearly rehearsed, look into the camera and tell them how important their vote is. And the "Aw man, you're a clown." It was within how long were they selling that T-shirt? You know, when he made his soundbite immediately. It was just.
Yeah, and once again, Donald Trump's shooting from the hip and everything.
I know.
I think people find the establishment politician thing comforting. Like I hear the thing like, finally we have an adult back in office. Finally, we have stability. I hear people tell me the last 4 years were nothing but chaos. And it's because they weren't chaotic. It was fine. But it was just this upset, like, the symbolism of it. Because you're the king or queen and there's like a certain posturing and stuff. And you weren't getting that with Donald Trump. And so a lot of people got very upset over it, over those 4 years. And they were upset over it, and so they did.
I wholeheartedly agree. They wanted someone presidential, but then right before that, the Republican Party was in trouble, and everybody was saying, you know, everyone in the circles I'm in, the Republican Party has to change. So here we get Trump. Republican Party can so totally change. He's a businessman. It's big government, which needs to be run like a business. So what's the problem here? They don't like the way he behaves. Well, we have, in the era of social media and massive news broadcast, 24 hours news, without that much news to fill. How many other presidents were like this that were generals that have to be badasses to go to war, that we don't know about because all we have is written speech? And him shooting from the hip, you know, he's telling you what he thinks. With a rehearsed speech commonly written by somebody else, that's what they're told to say. And
I think people find that comforting.
They do.
I think that's what I've been thinking about, is like people really want to feel like they kind of love the establishment. They kind of love that, like, they don't love it, obviously, like they're in love with it. It's this comfort that everything's under control. And I think Donald Trump, he kind of would shoot from all these different angles, but he never really landed that attack on anything. He kind of like, here's some bullshit happening here. It's kind of reveal things and, that were happening with just how corrupt the government was. And I think people found that, just like with a lot of these other things, like with COVID, for instance, I think they're like, oh my God, it really is that bad. The corruption really does run that deep. The lies are really that consistent. And I find that uncomfortable. So I'm not going to admit to it. I want to go back to sleep.
I think with Trump was interesting because he really had nothing to lose. Well, on both sides, I'll say he had nothing to lose and really nothing to gain by being president. Yeah. Whereas with traditional politicians like Bush, you know, it's a family business. Clinton, you know, he wanted to reach the top to get out of, podunk Arkansas. Obama, he had something to prove as, the first black president and whatnot, and his own. A lot of presidents have parental issues that they're working through as an armchair psychiatrist. But Trump was like, he was a playboy. He was, he had, billions of dollars. He didn't need the job to justify his existence. He was already a success.
He didn't need, that's the point. He didn't need, didn't need to promote himself. The other politicians need to promote themselves in order to keep their job, whereas Donald Trump doesn't need to, because that was never his job.
It's almost a come down for him to be president. Really.
I agree. Except that, financially and as far as strategic,
he lost a lot of money.
Steve,
and he took a lot of hits. I mean, he for the first time in his life. I mean, he always. People always kind of took shots at him, for his attitude and whatever. But for the first time, he was really vilified. I mean, people were, they're calling everything other than a child of God.
Yeah, I heard him in one of his speeches. He said that he used to be really good friends with Oprah Winfrey. She'd have him on his show all the time. Back in the 80s, she was asking him, would you ever run for president, when he was talking about how screwed up the country was. And now she's his worst enemy. And it's just... Yeah,
because she's a fraudulent human being, in my opinion. I mean, they're all fake plastic people, and they don't matter.
Well, they like you until they know your politics. That's it.
Yeah.
You have to be real
I've experienced plenty of that,
Oh yeah.
It's the weird like two-facedness of people and stuff. It's just and one thing that's one thing on my mind is the morality of it. I think we live in an age of both information and delusion, and thus none of this is really it's not about being the smartest. It's not about being the most researched necessarily. A lot of it just comes down to being a good person, and I think that we're facing a moral crisis in this country of just people who double down on a lie and double down on like this.
I don't think you can be a good person and be president. I mean,
I think it's bullshit. I agree with you. I think you can.
At some level, politics in general, but certainly once you get into that level of electoral politics, Senate and
Nope.
president.
It's dog eat dog. No way.
You have sold your soul.
You've had to fucking step on somebody. Yeah.
Just and then just to that with that much power. And then the thing is like think about the morality of it. Like everybody you have to profess to be like a good Christian or whatever. The president, you're the commander in chief of the armed forces. You're killing people. You're sending people to war.
Yeah, it's not the most.
Or in this
Christian
case,
position,
not this
folks.
guy. But the thing is, in this case, he didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that always it's like, I don't know, I just, all the corruption aside, all the standard obligatory, fuck these politicians, they're all snakes. I think he did a great job. I have no fucking major problems.
And I don't necessarily want a nice guy in the Jimmy Carter was a good Christian. I don't want a nice guy. I want
George
somebody
H.
with some balls.
And I
George,
just think
George H. He knows where a lot of bodies were buried. CIA.
True too, but he came across like he's a good guy.
Yeah, he came across not as a nice guy, but as a wimp. He was.
That's following Reagan, of course, with the kinder, gentler approach. But the thing to me is the most morality, where we've lost the most morality, is in, like I said before, I lost my job, a couple of jobs in the journalism industry, because now that we have 24-hour news, and there isn't 24 hours to fill the news, the line between opinion and actual news has so blurred that nobody knows what they're listening to. They don't know if it's opinion.
It's despicable. I'm at the point where when I see someone watching TV just casually, I just say, what are you doing? Why are you watching this trash? I tell people, this makes you a bad person. I don't fuck around anymore. I'm so fed up with this. You don't have any moral justification for believing it anymore.
No, there's no reason. The thing is that people on the other side,
I can watch it and they tell me what to think, and that's comforting because the unknown is scary to confront, and that's why you need new leaders to step up in this landscape. But you need people who don't.
There's a lot of people that I know that are on the other side of the aisle that distrust the media as well. So while they distrust the media, I wonder who they watching. Are they only watching the conservative media, and that's why they distrust it?
Well, there's a very strong alternative kind of media for the left wing as well, and
right.
They're just as retarded as the mainstream left media, except more well-spoken and more nuanced, but they're still wrong.
Who, the mainstream media or the left?
The alternative kind of left media, not like your Young Turks. There's this guy named Three Arrows. There's this guy named Joel something. I don't know. He's just a freaking moron.
No. And
I don't mean to be insulting, but
no, it's all right. I'm talking MSNBC. I'm talking CNN. I'm talking all of them. People. Those are baby boomers who watch that. I think a lot of people my age who kind of cling to the left wing delusion. They watch a lot of YouTube channels with they have smooth jazz music in the background, and there'll be some guy going, actually, the hidden history behind this or that, and it's it's so condescending, and they're just afraid. They're just so afraid to be called racist or sexist that they'll do anything they possibly can to deny a basic reality. That's just my opinion. Of course, I'm not being very nuanced about it right now, but no, you're not. But and then I'm one of the boomers. I'm on the end of the boomer, and my kids who are in, I don't know what the Gen X, millennial, I don't know what that all. But I have children who range from 30 to 18, and
that's all millennial. That's old millennial and young millennial.
That is where the language I use that I grew up with, that is universally, I don't care what you look like, I want to hear what you have to say, is the wrong thing to say. And I don't understand it. It's
you have to use the right pronoun and all that.
Exactly, or not use a pronoun. You have to, I have to say spouse not husband or wife,
and wife,
brother and sister, mother, daughter, whatever. But it's the language that has gotten to the point where it's all about language and not about thought. It's not about
language
the origination.
policing and sensitivity and
Policing,
everything.
censorship, yeah.
And they want to say 4 years ago, we need to change the Constitution. And then throughout the 4 years, they uphold the constitutional crisis that we're in because of what Trump's policies are or what he says on Twitter.
It's always a matter of convenience, which, I mean, of course, the right wing does too. But I just... Yeah. It's politics. Everyone's an opportunist, but like the left wing has just reached this new point of just like insanity. And I have this phrase I've been using recently when I talk to people where I say like the left is death and the right is life. And what I mean by that is like everything that the left seems to do at this point kind of amounts to like destruction. It's like a existential temper tantrum because society's not met these like super high ideals. Like we haven't ended racism, so therefore we should riot. We haven't ended sexism, so therefore we should do this. We need to address climate change immediately with the Green New Deal that just massively overhauls the whole government. You know,
we also haven't ended poverty when they want to give away money to other countries, and yet we still have poverty here. We still have issues with our kids.
You know, we must end poverty, so that must be forced as well. And even though like wealth disparity is a huge issue right now, but like the left is just these
they're the ones racking it up. It's like, who the Republicans stand for 20, 30 years ago and who the Democrats stand for at the same time has totally flip-flopped, and nobody's willing to call it out. And that's one of the things that frustrates me the most is that they're the government for the people. They're the party for the people. And yet Trump comes in and says, let's make America great. Let's keep Americans first. And for real, cuts off all these other areas where we're flooding money in and keeping it in where it needs to be. Let's teach our own kids literacy before we go to another country and help them with literacy too. Let's fix our own backyard before we worry about somebody else's. Giving the money away to China and to Russia and to Iran and to Pakistan when it should be here. It just should be in these borders.
And it stems from this, this kind of, and at the deepest level, it's like this Western guilt, this kind of, you know, we're all such bad people and everything, and our old roots are...
That's white liberal guilt. Let's be more specific.
It's exactly what it is.
Guilt. Yeah, no, I don't see that kind of guilt among black people or Mexicans or any other group. It's white liberals who ultimately I kind of hate the most. But the white liberals are the ones who will point me out and say I'm the one that's a white liberal, or I'm the one that's the problem with what they're causing, and that just it astounds me. My tendency too, you know, and Rob, you've probably noticed on the world of Facebook and everything. I entered into like this talking about this more phase, in a very much more gentle, kind of eloquently spoken way, which I still do. But at this point, I kind of just don't give as much of a fuck because I just think that there has to be ultimately. I think about if I'm in a room of people, and I've been this person in the room as a musician. I've been this person where like there's people talking politics and they are comfortable going like this and just talking about whatever they want to talk about and just kind of like casually denigrating some other viewpoint or some other group of people that, you know, like white conservatives, suburban white people, whatever, and they just feel comfortable with themselves. And then I've been the one who's got to go, okay, I'm just going to bite my tongue and just say it because I don't want to get called out in this music scene. I'm at an open mic night, I'm at a coffee show, I'm at a bar where there's hipsters and everything. And I realized that while I thought this was a practical decision, it actually was going to hurt me in the long run, that they're the one dominating the space. So I have no issue or guilt being more aggressive now. Like, I'm going to take up space. I'm going to speak freely.
Yeah, and you may pay a price for that as a straight white male, the price. You know,
especially in an art field.
Are great too. Oh, the rewards are great too because I have people messaging me. I have people messaging me after I start a huge argument on Facebook. There's like usually one guy messaging me going, "Hey man, like me and you got to book a show together. I'm working."
You get them undercover coming out.
Yep. I have booking agents going. I had someone tell me I'm not booking these libtards anymore. I'm fed up with it. And you should be. And I actually, at this point, I had a client, and I recorded 2 songs for him. I asked for very little money. I put all my effort into it. It took me months to produce it. I made $50 because I was trying to cut my teeth and everything. I did a lot of favors for him. I promoted him. I referred to him to join a band. I got him gigs at shows. I was being a very nice person in the community. And this person unfriended me and just, and had this dehumanizing attitude towards me because I criticized the religion of Islam. And he has this, I don't know why he loves Muslims so much, but he's a white liberal, so he has to love them. And I said, hey, I did a lot of things for you, and you've just wrote me off completely. And he said, well, this decision not come easy, but you're pushing so many people away. And he had the audacity to say, after I told him, look, I have people threatening me for saying this stuff, and you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. You're saying I don't believe in freedom of religion. I'm saying I'm criticizing a religion. That's called freedom of speech. You can criticize belief systems. And he just said, well, a lot of people I know are afraid to speak up to you, Jason. I'm like, afraid of what? An impassioned rebuttal? That's all I do to you. I have people telling me they'll never work with me again. I'm going to ruin your career. Fuck you. And then I give people passionate rebuttals, and you're afraid of me?
Yeah.
The audacity.
I ask questions and get alluded to.
Yeah. And
I get categorized.
If I sense that about you, I'm not working with you.
Yeah.
Maybe if we have common goals in some other way, but I'm going to be a lot more picky
no.
now.
People have known me for 30 years, and 30 years they've known me, but they don't know my politics because I don't bring it up. And all of a sudden I ask questions about news coverage, not the event, but news coverage of the event. And two people answered one person answered twice without bias. And then, she blew out of the water. When another friend came in and totally put bias in, she decided to dive in both feet. And it was just unbelievable
they get so fed up. I mean,
they're name calling, cancel culture. Call me a name and end the conversation.
I think they're just emotionally cucked. At some point down the line, they consume some piece of media that just told them like you're a bad person if you think something.
Well, some piece of media is the main media that's out there. It doesn't matter.
Think that thought that they consider to be racist, they just shock, and so they just can't do it, and they lash.
They said Trump's racist, therefore anybody who follows him is racist. Anybody who supports him is racist. But tell me where it was that he's. Tell me the proof. Show me the proof where he's racist, and they'll show me clips, and it's like no. I need to see the entire footage that you have, because there's no way he has debunked or rebuked the KKK and the white supremacists and David Duke repeatedly, and you never see that on CNN. You never see that on MSNBC or ABC.
And I'll pay a price for whatever the stuff, but I do think the reward, because I mean, I've gotten a lot of rewards. I have so many people coming to me, like there's a void that needs to be filled, especially as a musician and artist. There's a cultural void. All the musicians and artists are liberal because that's where the propaganda starts. The propaganda never starts in the media. It starts.
Well, the thing about art and particularly about music and film acting, that it comes from a place where conservatism is more like you have a job, you have a family, you're taking care of things. You don't want to rock the boat. You believe, you're doing something. You're believing in God and whatever. Art. It's usually supposed to rock the boat. It's supposed to be transgressive. It's supposed to be, tear down the system, this, that, and the other thing. Traditional morality is banal, and we've got to do John Waters. We've got to do
the avant-garde stuff and everything.
Yeah, whatever.
I see traditionalism as the new forward-thinking thing. That's the new punk rock, is being right wing at this point, because
exactly flip-flop.
We've become so. I mean, I don't want to use the pendulum thing necessarily, but we've just gone so
No, it's a rubber band.
And I think that was deliberate. I think that there are conspiracies to manipulate and hollow out our culture.
Oh, come on. It's so obvious.
I mean, the Hollywood liberal and everything, it's very obvious what they do with movies. And it's manipulative. That's why I use the word emotionally cuffed. Like you have early childhood experiences that actually shape you. They shape you.
And then the educational system. Yep. And then
learned and unlearned so many different biases and behaviors over the years. I've kind of rewritten my brain.
The best thing a student can do in college or in high school, whatever grade, is when the teacher gives an opinion that tends to be religion or biblical or any kind of religion or politics, is to just play devil's advocate and see where they go with it. I don't care if you believe them or not. Just play devil's advocate and see what they can come up
That's a
with.
good idea.
Because they're going to feed you and shove it down your throat with what they think and what they're going to say. But the minute you devil's advocate them, they get flustered. Ask them a question.
Oh, I've done that so many times. I only went to community college. I wasn't heavily involved in that, but I'd pick fights with the teachers, and some of them would get so. One woman, she got so insulting towards me. She made the claim that that women have it harder than men because of the higher levels of depression, and I was like, I disagree. No, look at the male suicide rate, and she started getting angry at me. She said, do you even talk to women, Jason? Do you even talk? I'm like, yeah. I have a girlfriend. What are you talking about? You
Or I got the shame during the 2016 election because I had Trump all over my car and I had the T-shirts and I was deplorable and I went to every rally.
Out of the curve.
And I stood for freedom of speech. So when they're across the street protesting the rally, I, with my deplorable shirt, go stand right next to them. And they're like, what are you over here for? You can't be here. It's like freedom of speech. I can too be here. But eventually and inevitably always get don't you want a female in office? You're a female. Why aren't you going with Hillary? And it's nah, I don't care what bits and pieces they have. Because if y'all been saying he only got in because he has his bits and pieces, then why are you doing the exact same thing and saying it's okay? I don't think so.
What a crummy metric for a candidate.
I know. I'm a woman, so vote for me. No. And all the women out there who voting for her because she's a woman, it's do you know her policies? Unbelievable. And then
I think too, with because I mentioned right wing is the kind of the new punk rock and everything. I mean, given your vibe, Barbie, you got the pink hair, the glasses, and the scarf. You don't look like a 1950s housewife, very prim and proper. I know. You're clearly intelligent. You got a political science degree. You've worked in media and everything.
I've worked in media. I've worked in theater. I'm all
a lot of people who are liberal-minded, right, are now finding themselves as conservatives, and it's because the liberalism become the norm, and it's not even a contrarian thing necessarily. It's just
I've always been conservative. I've been the gamut of the religions. I've done religious theory studies. So the way the mind works, the mass population guidance, the sheep, the manipulation. And if you see through it, it's okay, I can be socially liberal and fiscally conservative, meaning get your hand out of my pocket because I made it and I want it. And if I want somebody to have it, I don't want it for an issue that's so cut down the middle. I don't want my tax dollars going to something that's a moral issue. I want my tax dollars to go to the reading, writing, and arithmetic that makes America better. And so.
Hey, Rob, are you still there? It looks like your screen's frozen.
Oh, no, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Rob.
I can hear you. I just wanted to make sure you're still here. You didn't disconnect or anything.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, actually, this is kind of a random topic, but after that debate with this client of mine who got pissy because I criticized the religion, he made this separate, and I was thinking about this because our nation is, this idea of one nation under God, right? So already that kind of you would, in some people's eyes, draw this criticism of well, how is that? That's violating separation of church and state. That's the idea, But at the same time, though, I was thinking about it earlier, and separation of church and state is not separation of spirituality and state or religion and state necessarily. I believe the original premise of separation of church and state
it's different.
Was you don't have a Church of America akin to a Church of England or something like that.
Yeah, you can't. The government can't tell you what you can or cannot practice.
Or it's just separation of a violation of separation of church and state would be well, we're going to tax these people who aren't Christian or something.
Well, here's my thing. You say under
or close
God,
and say they can't congregate.
Oh, go ahead.
We're not saying under Jesus or under Allah
or Buddha or
a specific religious God.
We're saying under some sort of religious thing. And if it's not under God, then who is it under? Is it under Lenin? Because there's always got to be some kind of thing to fill the void.
It's
socialist and control, or if it's a capitalist.
Oh no, I got it. It's one nation under Biden. very divisible,
Right.
without
Very
liberty
divisible.
or justice for anyone.
But like the idea of one nation under God, I think is valuable in that, like, and this is whether you're an atheist, agnostic, Christian, theist, or whatever, is like this idea that the state answers to a higher power than itself. You don't worship
There
the
is
state,
where
you
you
worship a
derive
higher
your
power
morality.
above that state.
This is where you derive your morality, God, and
Well, we also
and
have certain
justice.
unalienable rights. Where does that come from? Where do our
Yeah.
inalienable rights come from? I mean, where does that stem from? If we're not all equal, what
From
are
our
we?
Creator.
Yeah,
Right.
from a creator.
Yeah,
There's
from a- yeah,
who-
this-
Otherwise,
does George Washington make us? Does he make our rights?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're animal farms. Some animals are more equal than others. If we don't, if we
Yeah.
don't have a God where we start out at zero, then we're somebody's going to say, okay, you animals are more equal than the other. You know.
Right. I need to bring up something kind of segue tangent. So totally,
Sure.
always. So Nike taking the Betsy Ross shoe off the market. Why did Biden have a Betsy Ross flag, 2 of them hanging behind him during his inauguration?
Who's Betsy
know,
Ross, by the way? I'm not really familiar with.
Okay, the flag that has
The
13
one
stars and 13
who-
stripes.
Oh, like the original 13 colonies?
What's that? What's
That
that?
referencing the original 13 colonies, you mean?
The 13 colonies and the 13 stripes. Yeah.
Huh.
And I know that there's historical reference to who Betsy Ross was and all this other stuff. And I get that. My point is, Biden had it there. My point is, it went on for Nike and they took it down. And then Biden had it hanging from behind his inauguration, unless I'm completely wrong.
I didn't watch the inauguration.
Okay,
But
I didn't either,
I'm
but I taped
curious-
it and I saw pictures.
I'm curious
taped it.
about what the I mean, yeah.
Well, maybe Biden flashed back to his 1970s era. You know, where
Yeah, I don't know. Unless
He's evolved. You know, a lot of the he's changed quite a bit. I mean, you listen to his talk about not liking busing and having misgivings about sending his kids to school with black children.
yeah, I don't think that's evolved. I think that's backsliding and tracking and having.
I know.
I know. I'm just teasing. Yeah.
Quotes,
Yep. Oh yeah, the air quotes exactly. And I don't think that he serves any purpose by saying like 4 months before he he chose this VP that it's going to be a female. And what does that mean? That females have to be given special consideration in order to make it where they need to be? No.
Yeah, it's also this kind of feminization of politics.
Exactly.
Like,
and it acts like that's a good thing.
I think there's a lot of like if you look at the masculine versus feminine archetypes or like those kind of sentiments and I controversially enough, I would actually say that generally speaking, what you call masculine qualities are better suited to politics. And
Yes.
that's not necessarily mean because there's women who have that like masculine kind of traits, like Judge Judy, for instance.
Yeah.
She's not like a prim and
That's individual to individual, though.
There's individual differences, but like there's a general feminization of politics where everything has to be fair, so everyone's opinion matters. That's stupid.
Everyone has to be nice.
Everyone had no.
Yeah, you have to be nice and polite, and some people's opinions are more valuable than others.
I
It's
agree.
just the way it is.
Well, there's studies, and I wish I knew the gentleman's name, but I just was watching a program, and it's a study out of Sweden where, and it's true. Women tend to care more about people, and men tend to care more about things. And so, what they were
Yes.
talking about was going for your college education. What kind of degree you're going to go for? What is your job you want to be? And why there's a disparity between engineers that are female and male. It's like, or nurses, male to female. And it's just like, because of that study, it just seems to make sense, And
There
I would be
definitely-
very unpopular to say that in a group of women. Or
Yeah. I mean, there are biological differences, general biological differences between men and women, and that's relevant to take into account.
Well, there's
it's
actually
just calling. Yeah. Go ahead.
But
the standard deviations. Larry Summers, former Harvard president and Treasury Secretary, he got in deep shit for basically saying we need to look at the statistical differences between why there are more men in the hard sciences and whatever, because the statistical deviations are you have more men who are doing really badly and you have more men who are doing very, very well, and then women kind of congregate in the middle of that. But
there's more stupid men than stupid women by far.
How many?
Well, there's more men than women. That just makes sense. So yeah.
Right.
I was listening to I think it's a podcast that she has. No, it was a YouTube with Candace Owen. And she's basically saying the same thing, is like, if we're out there and we're voting for the best person, we don't care if they're male or female, your background, your race, your ethnicity, or anything. It's just what you stand for and what you think. But then the identity politics comes in and just pushes you to feel, it's just incredible to watch. Well, I don't know. I mean, Joe Biden saying, if you don't know who to vote for, well, then I guess you're not black. It's just like, what does that mean? If I already know who to vote for, I must be white.
You ain't black.
Yeah, you ain't black. I'm sorry. Yeah. So even the vernacular had to go there. It's like, really?
Yeah.
And
that's something that the Democrats, they have been pandering for decades to the black vote. They have
they do.
Said,
and it's separate them. Keep everybody unequal. If you keep them unequal, they cause riots amongst themselves. You get differences in small minorities. You get differences in religions, like over in England. Okay, the Protestants and the Catholics fight. In Ireland, the Protestant Catholics don't like each other. So the Palestinians and the Jewish don't like each other. It's always going to be there if you constantly point it out. So. What I was just saying to my husband, who's Jewish, the Germans and the Jews don't seem to be having too much of a problem with each other. And the Jews and the Palestinians goes back, too far to count, but since it started in 39 with Hitler coming in and killing as many as he did and doing what he did, there aren't very many places that are still anti-German or anti-Jewish within that community, strictly speaking to that community. So to continue separating black people with white people and brown people or Asian people or whatever, it's just, I don't understand. And I'm a white person, so people are going to say I'm privileged, and I don't understand.
It's like really, you're going to have some level of division, but it's just trying to make it as wide as possible.
It should be. It's people who have different thought processes, and if you let them think, and not make it because I'm a female, I need to vote for a female. It's
keep reminding people of their differences and everything. And that's what they benefit from. They benefit from the racial discord. And it's funny because I have people, I've been very critical of Black Lives Matter and stuff. And people will say, well, you're part of that division because you're criticizing Black Lives Matter so much. And that's just gaslighting. It's just like, no.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not the one who wanted to make this a race thing. You guys are. That's what your decision was. You're the guys who decided to freak out because a white police officer in one state. And it happens, but
it happens.
Statistics don't pan it out. It just doesn't pan out. It's that the drama, the theater of it all. This black man,
the drama, the pearl clutching
he's on his
drama.
back, and then the knees on him and everything, and then he's got so many people at his funeral and everything. It's like he's like this religious symbol for people, this grand martyr for this cause.
It takes the place of religious revivals. America
has
religious revivals. And it's something that, people could kind of be a part of. But now that we are divorced from religion, the left has kind of pulled us away from that. Now that the religion is racial
politics.
Politics, gender politics.
Yeah, nail Breonna Taylor to the cross. She died for your sins, Yep.
Figuring it out. Then there are a lot of issues surrounding all of that when you have, again, I'm going to bring up Candace Owen starting Blexit, and nobody knows what it is because it doesn't get covered. Nobody's listened to her speech because it doesn't get covered. black exiting the Democratic Party.
Well, that's something that has started. There are a lot of
Yes.
black intellectuals, Larry Elder, Thomas
Okay.
Sowell.
Yeah. I've listened to Candace on the floor of Congress when they were doing DACA, and how well spoken she is, and how she used to be a Democrat, and she just takes hit after hit after hit that she's not really black, or that they're going to do this and say all these things. And it just, when I steer people toward her, they just act like I'm crazy. There's no such thing. That doesn't exist. And
one thing that, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Doing good.
I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, I just, because I hear this, and so we seem to kind of be on a similar enough page where, like, obviously something's quite wrong, and so I guess I got to ask the question, like, what's the best approach to this? How do we get some sort of amount of sanity here? Is it just debating and arguing with people? Is it what kind of approach should you take when you're debating and arguing with people? Is it just sort of like building your own institutions so that you can combat these other institutions? So if you don't like the big tech censorship, you just go over the alt tech. Like, what's the approach? Because everyone's got a different approach.
Right.
Well, let me interject for a minute, because I was having a discussion with a friend of mine. We in America, we have so many different factions, whether it's politically or ethnically or whatever. We are not like Japan, where we have a shared ethnic and historical background.
Right.
We're a melting pot. So that's why
I disagree. We're not a melting pot.
There's
we
go ahead. I'll get into that in a minute.
The thing about it is that we have not been able to avoid factions, like Washington said. We have divided ever since his administration.
Right.
And the thing is, we're coming apart just as we came apart in the Civil War. But the thing that kind of unites us is not like in Japan or other more ethnically homogenous countries that shared sort of destiny. I mean, everybody says, well, to hell with my neighbor, we want our own piece of the pie, whatever. The only time we kind of come together is like when 9/11 happens or some other tragedy. So then it's like, oh, we're all Americans and we have to go out and defend
terrorists, fight
democracy.
Yeah.
So the question is, in the next 4 years to next generations, how are we going to stop the democratization, or do we have to divide the country into different regions and just say the American experiment failed? What do we do? Or can we
you're getting the same thing, because it's an uphill battle, right? I mean, like, I argue with a lot of people. That's the approach I've taken, and it seems to work in some ways and it fails in other ways. One thing I think of is,
I'm going to say another thing real quick. And this is probably kind of controversial. I think forced integration, and certainly the LBJ Great Society policies were a big mistake as implemented. We needed to certainly guarantee full civil rights, voting rights for Black people. But the way that the Black people had industries under segregation, their own businesses, their own banks, their own funeral parlors or whatever, that's what made Black people economically competitive and able to thrive after the
you have your own space.
ended.
No, that's
where we were
Johnson.
Where we were like the Arabs, where we were like the Chinese. We had, our equivalent of Chinatown.
You keep together because that's who you know, and there's a commonality of people.
But we were able to take care of ourselves. We were able to, spend our money. And so if the white man didn't want to deal with us, we would have a community, and we would have dollars to do the things we have to do.
Another thing too is
now we're begging the Democratic Party for crumbs. That's not.
Yeah. The other thing too is that, like, when there's like that, like, it's not like that lack of space, like having your own space to kind of control your own destiny. It's like now the implication is like you have to get into white people's space. Like, that's where your destiny is. You have to take that over. And I mean, it's just gonna drive that tribalism wedge so much further. Because you're absolutely right. It's like, and I guess I
agree, Robert.
The melting pot thing is that, like, you can't just if you just melt into this gray amorphous waste, it's like you lose who you are. People don't want to lose who they are. Like this whole idea that we're a melting pot, I think that's a lie. For most of this country's history, it has been, this is just a fact, majority white. That's been most of this country's history. And so
white has evolved. I mean, 100 years ago, an Italian wasn't white. A Jew wasn't white.
Yeah.
Right.
So
No, white means anybody but, yeah. Yep.
And like the more people you kind of just bring into the fray, it's like the more factions and divisions and disassociations you're gonna have to deal with. And I mean, we're on track to deal so much more because people like Joe Biden and all these people, they just love open borders. They just love, let's let in all the religions, let's let in all the races, everyone. And it's just like inevitably people want some sort of unity.
We'll become France.
Yeah, we're gonna have some. We want some kind of unity, and so the unity we're gonna find is worshiping the state, and that's my
unity.
Fear.
Yeah, the unity that Biden will enforce because it's a law.
They want something, and so that's really frightening to me. And there's actually studies that show that greater levels of diversity on ethnic lines, religious lines, and everything actually increases, makes people less trustful of each other. Because everyone's kind of forced to be together. It's like you don't have your own space and you don't have enough separation to really feel like you can look out for yourself and your own people. And
but I think that's also where we can become a melting pot, if you don't mind just the term, meaning just the assimilation. And I only mean instead of one being better than the other, if you have your community that you have a Muslim community here and you have a Christian community here and then you have a Jewish community here and you have a black community over there that's Christian, whatever, Muslim, whatever, to know that they're there, you're going to mix when you work or when you shop.
Yeah.
Eventually, but you can still have who you are and who you belong to, so to speak, or who you identify with.
Having some space, but also the intermingling is helpful.
Yes, without being attacked.
What I'm noticing though is that like I'll give you a little example. So like I got two neighbors across the street, two houses right next to each other. One of them had a big Trump flag, right next to it a big old Biden flag.
Right.
The whole time leading up to it, completely different people. Now I remember what happened was as the election was approaching, the Trump house changed their flag to an American flag. So they're pro-America. And then the Biden flag remained. And then after the election was over, the American flag on the Trump house changed to like a Blue Lives Matter flag or something like that. And then the Biden house changed to an American flag. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting. It's almost like, now that Trump's not president, I'm pro-America. And so I think it's like the nationalism thing, because like I really find there's a lot of value in the put the ethnic differences aside, put the religious, all these cultural differences aside. We're all Americans, damn it. But like at the same time, I do not want Biden's unity. Fuck that unity. You showed me. I was showed nothing but disrespect and hate for 4 years. You're not preaching unity. But like that's the thing is like, so even with that definition, you really have no unification, and I think it's gonna be forced. Like ultimately, it's like one of them's gonna win. Some sort of unifying factor is going to win. How does it's either?
Yeah, my question all along when he was going to say, "I'm the president who's going to bring you together." All I wanted to say was, which policies are you going to keep in place that matter to me then? Which ones are you going to pick and choose from? Because so far, he's doing exactly the opposite and erasing everything that President Trump did. And not only putting Biden's policies in, because he doesn't have any, he's going back to the Obama policies. His whole administration that he was originally calling on after November 3rd were basically former Obama administration.
Yeah, we're looking at like this bipolar kind of back and forth thing.
Yeah,
and it's going to lead to. I mean, I've never thought I would see it in my lifetime. Like states are talking, like Texas is talking about leaving the union. And I'm not really about that. But like at the same time, I think I'm going, I already think like in my own mind, just for my own personal sanity and personal life, it's like, when already with the mask mandates and the COVID stuff, I already go, that doesn't apply to me. No, I'm not following it. I don't follow those rules. You're not going to tell me I can't gather with my family. I don't answer to that authority. And I'm already kind of predicting, I think local governments and local politicians are going to be the more conservative ones in those red areas, red counties and everything, are going to look at something Joe Biden passed and go, you're not my president. That doesn't apply to me. And that's the beginning of that secession process. That's the beginning of it. And you even have places like the Chaz, or there's some anti-COVID lockdown protests in New York where there's a restaurant defiantly staying open with tons of people inside not wearing masks, and there's a sign outside that says, "This is no longer New York City. We're not part of the city. We write our own laws." And so already, and Eric, there's this guy named Eric Weinstein who has this really wonderful way of speaking and kind of summing things up. He says that we are LARPing our way into apocalypse. I can actually, because like that's LARPing, right? Like it's kind of like the theatrical dramatization of that division. You know, like this is no longer America. This little city block is a separate country now. You know, it's not a separate country. It's a separate country, but like it's kind of it's kind of a
separate way of thinking. Yeah. But you can't have a separate way of thinking without declaring yourself your own country, your own nation.
I'm almost in favor of some of that. Where like, I mean, there's groups of people I hang out with who are not following like the COVID lockdowns, for instance, or are just more conservative. And if I go like to a different part of the same city I'm in, interact with different people, I'm going to be talking to like a whole different society. Like if I use certain words, they're going to think I should get my fucking head chopped off. You know, and so it's like that. There it is. And like my fear is like in that division, it's like, well, what, as Rob said, the thing that usually pulls us together and unites us is a shared threat. Well, that shared threat's going to be China, because we're going to be this fractured. We're going to be this fractured place of people who just don't understand each other, do not get along, and then China's going to come along and take advantage of that. And I maybe will be able to stand up to them, or maybe once that threat presents itself, in order for the self-preservation of the entire country, we're all going to have to just go along with whatever Joe Biden's sense of unity is to fight against this, you know, so we don't get completely compromised. I don't know. It's just I'm simultaneously personally in favor of that division because I want to be able to live my life the way I want to live it, but at the same time, I'm noticing it's going to make us very weak as a country. And
it sounds not like the division of the Civil War to me. It sounds like the division of the Revolutionary War, like the whole 1776 movement. Not saying I'm in, or not saying I know anything about it, but we're talking about the Revolutionary movement where they were saying somebody else can't tax me without representation. Somebody else can't tell me what I need, what I am or am not going to do. Somebody else can't put a governor in who knows nothing about my people and tell me that I have to follow them. It's the exact same thing all over again. Watch out for your tea, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, like, and you have like, what is like, I think there's a poll that said 35. I think it's maybe a little more than this, but like 40% of Americans believe the election was illegitimate. So
I've heard 70 on the Republican side. So yeah, 70, exactly. Whatever that
70 on the Republican side. Yeah. I'm sure the polls will give you a large degree of numbers, and I mean, whatever one's opinion on it is it did not get nearly as much investigation behind it. It was not taken nearly as seriously or honesty as the Russian collusion narrative.
Oh no,
I mean, from day one, that was pushed by I from day one.
It still is. They still are, and it's not
it's like I mean, and I know, Rob, you kind of said there's more Americans this time. I can tell that you're not really quite as convinced as maybe I am that the election was stolen. But
I was speaking facetiously, but I'm just saying.
What gets me is, and I've asked lawyer after lawyer, 5 weeks, does that really give you the amount of time needed to contest something so hot and so difficult to prove that you just have to trudge everything along according to a time frame?
I mean, there's no way there wasn't a significant amount of foul play. And I mean, the argument is over what wasn't enough to swing the election, and it's like, that's a really wrong way to put it because
what is enough?
You don't. Wait a minute.
But was the will of the people even noticed, recognized with the Democratic nominee? I mean, we were before Biden got in. We were looking at Bernie and
he never had a nomination. He just was it all of a sudden.
It was a coronation. He was basically it was a coup back then.
Oh, and it's brilliant. No, Jason, you were talking about what are we going to do? How do we move forward from here? I mean, if you look back, it was a brilliant bloodless coup on the Democratic Party's part to start before I think Trump even won. They were already in the works. Well, they have been in anyway of getting the voting laws changed everywhere.
Yeah.
In all
the
5
mail-in
states.
voting and all that stuff.
But all 5 states that were such a slim margin are the ones who changed their mail-in voting at the last minute or along the line in 2018, and not all of it was ever investigated. So why can't Texas say we were disenfranchised because you didn't check into it enough? Maybe they weren't if they would just check into it long enough, because how can 5 weeks be enough time? It just bring people.
Most of that time wasn't spent doing any investigations.
No, it wasn't. It was covering
lawsuits
up.
and then rejecting them on some procedural grounds.
It was the news saying it's a lie, and it's
I would describe what happened as a coup. I would describe that.
I know, bloodless coup. It was brilliant though. So that's where.
Yeah, very, very, very well done, guys.
It was. So well, then there we go. They set we take a page from their playbook, as they would say, and is Republicans. We always have been the silent majority, as conservatives, whatever name you want to give it. I went to the Trump inauguration, and on the way home, I still wore my MAGA hat, and everybody was wearing their pink hats, and I had a pink Trump hat, and it ruined pink for me because those women had to come in with their little hats. But anyway, we're on the way home, we're stopping at rest stops. I have my MAGA hat on. People are going like this and saying, "So am I." They have a lapel under their collar. They're so afraid to show.
Oh my God! Like some weird, hidden.
Yes, it's exactly women coming out of the rest
Jewish
stop
star or something. Jesus,
I know, exactly. Why not just put a band on your arm and a Jewish star and call it a day? Just
I've had people confess to me that being Trump voters. I was like, I had no clue.
Yeah.
In fact, that's maybe a little too personal. I had someone as a friend of mine who confessed to me that she's a Trump voter before passing away, and I don't know what I'm going to tell her. All these friends who are very liberal, who love her so much, that she was a Trump voter.
She had
you gave her last. You're gonna hate me so much. You're gonna think I'm so bad and everything. This person confessed to me before dying that she voted for Trump, and she never told anybody.
Yeah. They'll just say you're lying. It's going to be propaganda.
Yeah. I'm the only one who knows.
It's propaganda. Don't worry about it. You just keep.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is it's a very tricky thing to do. I have some friends who are starting a farm. They're like, I want to grow my own food because I don't know when I'm going to get persecuted and I won't be able to.
Well, it's because you're trying to pick a fight with yourself.
Those are people are going in that direction. It's like, so, and I'm not convinced it's going to be mass violence because that's not the age we live in. It's going to be more like a Chinese style censorship,
like a Manchurian candidate that we have in office,
personing and stuff like that.
I think too. Though, I don't know. I might take.
You should
umbrage to that because I think that it is a violent thing, because although it didn't happen, all the stores on Rodeo Drive, everywhere in New York, they were boarding up their windows in fear of looting happening, and it didn't. So who are they afraid of losing or winning that would cause the other side to riot?
Just one thing that came on too is that it's like it's not overtly violent, but there's also what you could call, for all intents and purposes, violence. Like if you target someone and get them fired from their job, get them ostracized by the community, get their reputation destroyed and everything like that.
The silence,
you're actually threatening their well-being in a way that
their ability to have the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Which we've been accused, conservatives have been accused of doing to people who don't believe the way we do, that we are violating their right to find happiness or whatever. And then it just blacklisted. I'm blacklisted here. Yep. That's right. And it was blacklisted 4 years ago.
And you're going to have to create, there's let's create our own payment processors, our own tech platforms, our own website hosting servers, our own food chain
CNN,
supplies.
I'm sorry. I've read that AT&T is, and I might be wrong, but it's all coming from CNN, so it must be true. That AT&T is looking at selling CNN, and Amazon's falsely talked about being interested in buying it. But if they do, how much money and who do I hope's going to buy it? Wouldn't that be just the ultimate fuck you if Trump turned around and bought CNN? Would they let him if he had you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, please let this happen. It's just a perfect setup.
That'd be so hilarious. Yes, that doesn't give me hope. There are some wealthy people who have their head on straight. I mean, like by and large, or more straight. They're not NPCs. They're not global. I mean, like Elon Musk kind of has like he's like refusing to take the COVID vaccine. I'm like, okay, there's some stuff there where, it's maybe not all helpless in terms of standing up to these.
I agree. There's very few, but I wonder how long he can last. I just hope he can last.
I know that for myself, it's like, I just think, I'm an artist and I'm going to fill that void. Not many other people are going to do that. Like so few really stand up for that. And I'll
stand up in my own way and I'll get banned from Facebook, probably again get banned from Facebook. But I'll just challenge people to look at me and say I am what they say I am. You want to call me that? I want you to take a look at my life. Tell me that. Tell me you really believe that, Yeah. And I've had that with close friends saying, well, you are a racist. And so then I have to take a deck of cards, lay it out of my life and say, really, you want to call me that right now? And they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Just because I'm a Trump supporter.
Very quickly. It's actually quite discompassionate. And in general, you can't call me racist. You're racist. It's kind of like my like you're the racist person.
You're
get a hold of yourself.
I mean, we're all, when we get down to it, we're all a little bit racist.
So it's like if you notice, it's like if you notice my color, gee, really? Because you notice my color of hair, why wouldn't you notice the color of my skin? If that means I'm racist, I'm sorry, but it's where I put you as a category, and if I don't, that's where I'm racist. But so let's make this quite clear what that means.
Oh, boy.
And my daughter, who's a social worker, says I can't. No, my daughter says there's no such thing as reverse discrimination because you have to be the minority in order to be able to be discriminated against. But then one of my lovely Facebook replies said, I'm just upset because the whites are now going to be in the minority. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. Does that mean I'm a protected class now?
Well, here's the thing. I've heard the canard. You say, well, only white people can be racist because racism, it has to do with power. I mean, everybody can be prejudiced, whatever. But the thing is that there are powerful black people and powerful Asian people who could be. But racist is also, the definition is you having a preference and having thinking that your race is the supreme race and trying to elevate your race over others.
Right.
So yes, you can be. I could be racist against white people. You could be racist
by
against
definition.
Asian people could be also. And it also depends on which country you are. If you're in Egypt, the Egyptians can be racist against white Americans. If you're in China, the Chinese can be racist against white Americans. So it's like, it's like, oh, well, America is the whole world. That's very
not taught in social work. Nope.
One thing I was thinking of the other day too on that topic is I think I would say that in terms of having like an overt racial identity, I definitely say black people are much more comfortable having that. White people kind of have it, but it's like implicit and like kind of like this almost like a guilty sexual fetish. Like they're like, I like Hank a lot. He's my neighbor. And like, I really like Hank. And it's like, man, you just admit it that you like being around white people. Just like black people like being around black people. Just like, but like, I kind of noticed that there's like this lack of willingness to just own up to it among white people, while black people are just like I love being black. I love my black brothers. It's like they're just.
Well, see, I think the thing of the black identity is sort of an artificial identity because we're no longer Kenyans. We're no longer Whatever. You guys are still Italians. You guys are still Poles. You guys are still Irish. You can have Irish pride. I have friends who have Irish pride, whatever. But when you start saying I'm white pride, then you start getting into the Aryan Brotherhood. It's like you're not. You can't do that kind of pan-European, pan-white thing because it means something. We are all black because we were, taken away from our country, stripped of that, and codified as chattel. And now we have to say, and we have taken it back, just like gays have taken back, being called fags and whatever. It's like, oh no, you have gay pride parades and all that stuff.
I'm kind of back and forth in that. Where on one hand, I recognize that, that's where I recognize that's where the black identity comes from, but I would say that the race politics of if you criticize white people as a group enough, they're going to develop a white identity so they can defend themselves against the racial attack that they're getting hit with by being all white people are oppressive and everything. I would also say that there is kind of a European white culture, by and large, and it doesn't have to mean like white supremacy necessarily, but there is a
Western civilization. Yes, yeah, yes. Mozart, Washington, Shakespeare. Yeah. Yes, that's a European. Yeah,
that's your white culture and white identity. But it really, it doesn't have to mean like supremacy and like white national like that bullshit. Like we're gonna have a white ethno state. Like no, but at the same time, I don't see them as conflicted with one another. I don't see being pro-black and pro-white as against one another necessarily.
Basically, I kicked your ass.
Nope.
I think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. In theater, casting a family, or casting any casting, I do what I would go what I say is called blind casting. And I got told that's no such thing because I will see if they are black or white or brown or whatever shade they want to be. And there's no such thing as blind casting. And it's just that's not what I mean. And so don't categorize me as saying I can't see color because, I can see your color, but I can also not care. Because I can also say, yes, I understand you're Italian, and I love that your culture, and you have stereotypes that make me Irish or Scottish, my family, and they fit those stereotypes for a reason. And so I don't have a problem with it. If you say it to me in a derogatory manner, then I might turn around and say something to you. But my point being, we all can say, yes, you are this and you are that. And when I have to fill out that category of who I am not Caucasian because the Caucasus Mountains are in Russia. I'm not Russian. I'm from Ireland and Scotland, and they're Picts. So I'm a Pictish American. And then sometimes I'll say freckled because it just gets me mad. And so you want to know my pigment? I got freckles all over my white skin, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, and because I come from the Northern Isles, then you know what? When I'm in the sun, I burn, and I burn bad. So
yeah. And the other thing you mentioned is the blind casting. It's it's not that hard to, if you gotta overcome whatever implicit biases you have. It's not hard. Just do it if you have to do it.
It's just you just do it. And if somebody else has a problem with it, well, then I guess don't come. Don't look at what I'm doing because this is my art and this is what I'm showing and it's performance art. And I think that if the actor's good enough, it doesn't matter if they look like the rest of the family. You act like a family, and you're a family. Because I can tell you, my whole family doesn't look like me. So,
but on that subject of the black identity and everything, there's a lot of sympathy and compassion in my heart for that. I just thinking about because I can dig into my own heritage of being German, a little bit of Polish, Irish, and everything, and I've actually had some very rich cultural ethnic discussions of people where my parents came from and everything. There's this it's nice and everything. That sucks that a lot of African Americans can't do that. That don't have they've been stripped of all these John Smiths, just whatever African name they have any sort of connection to heritage. That really sucks. And the part where I get really frustrated is when suddenly it's the fact that sucks is directed at me. That's when I'm just fuck you. That's when I'm just I just have no patience for it. You're targeting the wrong person. I didn't strip you of your name.
They're not listening to you. That's all. They're just not listening. They're looking for an excuse to call you a name.
There's this brainwashing of taking that pain and then projecting onto all white people and it wasn't all white people. In fact, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it, but maybe I will. I was told recently, and I don't have the research to do this, but actually a lot of slave owners in the South were apparently a large proportion of them were Jewish. So if you want to get into that juicy shit right there.
No, we don't want to get into that. No, it's bad enough there's
That's
bad
what I
enough
heard.
that a lot of slaves came out with their masters' names and they were Irish Scottish names. So, being Scottish,
I mean, I guess if you want to go into all the slave owners of the South and let's go like, okay, they're like 30% Irish, 40% Jewish. Okay, who else do we fucking hate? Okay, there's some French people in there. Okay, find all the French people and spank them. Like,
find all the French
slavery.
people and spank them, give them back the Statue of Liberty, please.
And don't forget there were blacks who owned other blacks.
It's gonna be easy.
Yeah, find those ones too and track those specific, like wherever they came from in Africa, go to them and then round them up and then slap them all and be like, how dare you, you own slaves. I mean, it's like,
can't we? I mean, I don't know, but like I was talking about with the Jewish people and German people, and I know it is so not the same. But in as far as can we accept? Can we talk about and accept the horror that has been caused to many different areas and move forward?
Wow.
Can we come together and realize it's not me? And do I have to pay for the sins of my father, were he, or sins of my white brethren, or whatever?
Yeah, like people who are like it's like pay for the sins of people who are continentally related to you.
Yes, exactly.
Well, but we can't have it both ways. Okay, so we could say, all right, we won't blame all white people, but on the other hand, you can't have Southerners lionizing Robert E. Lee and having Confederate Remembrance Day. So we all get away from. We all say, okay, it's 2021. We're all, we're just Barbie, we're Robert, and we're Jason. We're not, son of Robert E. Lee, son of Martin Luther King, son of so and so. So we can't lionize some parts of the past and blank out other parts. It's got to be all or nothing.
Well, I mean, I guess, but like at the same time, the fact that how big of an issue is it that there's some people who are kind of stuck in the Confederate flag? I mean, here's what I say about it: is there are some people who are stuck in the Confederate flag, and I'm not stoked about it. I don't really care. I'm not South to rise again. But at the same time, there's people on the other end of the spectrum who genuinely are bigoted against Southerners, and they genuinely are we'll kill the slave owners. I'm like, the Civil War was not a blessing. That was a very bloody, disgusting war, and it sucked. I kind of it's I don't really care about the bitterness from both sides of it. The existence of some people waving Confederate flags and drinking moonshine or whatever. I feel like there's just a chip on their shoulder, and they're not really. What are they doing exactly? It's like flat earthers. Maybe it's a little worse than flat earthers, even moderately worse than flat earthers. But I've had people freak out about the existence of flat earthers. I'm like, what are they doing? Are they taking over scientific institutions and convincing our government that the world is flat? There's just people on the side, fringe, and it doesn't matter.
Well, here two things. One, can you guys hear that interference? Is that you, Barbie? I keep hearing something coming up.
Oh, it might actually be me, unfortunately. Let me see.
I don't think it's me.
Agreed.
I really. Let me think. Yeah, because you're right about that.
Okay.
But my point, real quick.
Okay. Yes.
I think with the Civil War, I mean, it's all in the name of it. We had brother versus brother, and when you have a family feud, you don't really let those things go. I mean, if you had a fight with your mother 20 years ago, you're still going to hold on to that even after you've kissed and made up. Whereas with other wars, wars against other countries, it's like, oh well, we can be cool with the Japanese, we can be cool with the Germans because it wasn't so close. But with Northerners and Southerners, you had literally brothers fighting against each other.
Families against families.
So you have to figure out how to do that kind of reconciliation, which I don't think has really honestly been done. I mean, we've had fits and starts. We had Reconstruction, and then after Rutherford B. Hayes got in and basically said, okay, you know, when the election went to the House of Representatives, he said, look, I will take the federal troops out of the South if you throw me the election.
Right.
That was kind of the Republican betrayal of the blacks in the South, and so there hasn't really been sort of that ongoing catharsis of, you know, getting black people to from getting that history away of making black people just like every other ethnic immigrant minority.
Thank you.
We still have that collective memory of slavery, and I think that there's always that fear of, I think in a lot of black people, like, oh, we are always the other. You know, we could be not literally that we could be re-enslaved, but it's like we don't have anywhere to go because we don't know where in Africa we're going to go to. We don't have,
I remember, Robert,
that protection.
You talked about like generational trauma and everything too. I remember that.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's certainly like a psychological, cultural, spiritual conundrum to resolve. And I think that there's powerful people that exploit that as much as they possibly can.
I think that's the biggest problem. It's the exploitation of the two different ways of,
You know, I mean, never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
Never let a good opportunity to shove a divide between two people, between anything. And like Robert, you were right. Thank you for saying that. As far as brother against brother, it's like the Hatfields and McCoys. There's always those situations now where you have families that fight with each other and it just doesn't go away. And it is emotional disparity. You did this, so I've got to have the revenge for it. And good analogy. And I really appreciate that because that's something that everybody, I think, needs to think about. It's a coming together of realizing it was whites fighting whites over slavery. So they're the ones. And if this, you know, it's a okay. If we're going to be cleansed anywhere, or reprogrammed, that would be where maybe. And that's not liberal or conservative. That's just people's nature. It's a human nature to it's the same thing with Palestinian and Jerusalem. I bet you half of them don't know why they're fighting. It's just they always have. And so, I mean, but I think that the Trump, the incited Trump march on Washington, march on the Capitol, insurrection, being led by the Confederate flag. I saw one during.
Yeah, I saw one there too. There's one. I'm like, oh, here's your obligatory Confederate flag.
Yes.
Like, there's just any right wing protest, you got to have some guy of Confederate flag.
They didn't show the blacksfortrump.com flag. And the many that were
really
there.
Focus on that Confederate flag, and I just feel like I don't know. One thing I was thinking of too. Crap, I actually kind of forgot what I was going to say, so maybe I'll just not say that because
it's usually good till it comes back around.
So cold.
Yeah.
No, I think that and the more eloquent you talk against or question, even if you don't say for or against anything, if you question anything other than the narrative that's going out, any kind of question, you could be on the side of the narrative, but make a question, you're automatically deemed evil or controversial, or you're questioning the authority. When the authority is just news people like us, they're just calling comments. That's it. Color commentary, nothing more, and that's it.
You know, it was really funny. So I was in a conversation lately. I just remember what I was getting at because I was basically at a jam session recently. The most liberal place you can get. I mean, this is like hippie liberal, like people wearing crystals and stuff around their neck and everything, and very mixed race in Detroit, like lots of black people, lots of white liberal people and everything. And I brought up the race topic a little bit, actually a lot of it. I was like this. It became the second jam session after the jam session. I think the fact that I'm good at guitar helped me survive that debate. Because people already liked me. But I found myself arguing more of the white liberals about the points I was making about the white identitarian versus the black identitarian, the George Floyd stuff and the BLM stuff. I found myself more at odds with them than these black people there. There's like these black people who are more like kind of like this. They're kind of like spiritually open-minded, and they kind of, it's almost like basically the role I played was like the angry white man. And I feel like the white liberals hated that more than the black people there. They almost kind of, I could sense they almost like to relate to it. And yeah, I'm fucking pissed off too. I hate fucking when feeling like I'm getting hit because I'm black. I hate feeling like I have this, I've been bludgeoned and I'm part of like this bruised people culturally. And so I actually found more understanding with them. And I thought that was really interesting. Even though like we didn't really always see eye to eye, but like I could tell like the anger I was speaking with, which is I was kind of just being like, I was shooting from the hip. I didn't really give a fuck. Was understood actually pretty decently. I thought that was interesting. And just like Rob, you remember Adam on the show? It's like he has a weird grew up in like around an e-course of all like these black people, and he has a sense of like brother, like he has a sense of alliance of black people because he grew up with them more so than like any white.
I think there's an in-group out-group thing because I think if you as a white, not you, but if a white person leaves the white group and hangs out and identifies with black people, I think we're willing to kind of take a chance on you because you're basically renouncing power. But a black person who is trying to enter into white society or white power, there's always a sense of, oh, well, they're trying to be uppity. They're trying to, and I think there's sort of that, maybe there's a little bit, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but there's sort of that feeling like, what is this son of a slave doing trying to usurp into our power? I mean, depending on where you're going.
Yeah, there is that condescension and everything. I guess it sucks either way because it's like, I mean, you can be, I mean, with Adam, he got fucking jumped and attacked and beat up by fucking people because he got beat up by black people because he's white. So the hostility is there either way. I mean, I guess I'm not going to say one is worse than the other. I mean, it depends on the individual experience and everything, but there is that tribalism. There's a little bit of that hostility and everything.
I mean, from my own personal experience, I mean, there's something that has stuck with me for 30 years. I had a childhood crush on a white girl when I was in grade school, and her dad was a prominent man, a dentist, and he was known in the school, in the neighborhood, as being prejudiced against blacks, and it had trickled down to his daughter, and she said, I can't be your little girlfriend because my daddy doesn't like black people. And I just thought that was it was very hurtful. It still hurts me to this day. But it's like, the idea that, at that level, even in kindergarten, it was being taught that to be with someone black, that was just not.
It was a nice, easy one.
It just. So that kind of taught me some racial realities, that it wasn't, and my parents, it wasn't like my parents were, janitors or criminals or whatever. I mean, at that time, my parents were upwardly mobile professionals. But even still, they were sending their child to a very nice school, and it was still like, no, I don't.
Yeah, and it's like
there is no black good enough.
That sucks. It's like I see that kind of like that like. I feel like I've experienced a small version of that with other white people, where like I have family members where it's like this kind of, just to draw some kind of analogy, where like they're all very like, at Thanksgiving dinner, you do not bring up politics at all, otherwise you are a pariah. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You are extremely rude if you press the issue at all whatsoever, even if the implicit norm of this whole group is one way and we just do not question. It's like I felt that there's the white people kind of have like this hush hush, quiet, don't speak up. There's a little bit like that, some Victorian posh or something like that,
Well, that's just, you respect someone's home. It depends on whose home you're in. But I mean, that's just, I think, common courtesy to be careful what you say. But yeah, to tell you not to, I guess, is one thing. But I have 3 points to the white person with the black people thing. One, I could start chronologically. Okay, chronologically, one would be when I was a little girl, my grandma and grandpa took us to a Baptist church, Southern Baptist all the way. And I always played with this one little girl when we were in Sunday school, and she had the most fabulous hair. She had little colored barrettes all over her hair, and I wanted that so bad. And we were like, every Sunday we'd see each other. We were hanging out and holding hands, the whole thing. And all of a sudden, my mom came in, and my grandma and grandpa never said anything. My mom comes in and she pulls my hand away from hers, and her mother pulls her hand. So her black mom's taking the black girl away. My white mom's taking this white girl away. And what my mom said to me was, she will get in so much trouble. You don't want to do that. And I just kept, what? And then, so chronologically moving forward, I have a black daughter who married an Italian man, white. And so my granddaughter was born. And my teeth showed when my daughter said, thank God she can pass. Teeth barred. And then last night I went to a birthday party and I walked in. I was the only white girl. So I walk in and conversation stops and looks at the door. I'm like, hey, where's Dawn? And everybody took that breath and then moved on, and it didn't matter anymore. But I'll tell you, the funniest comment of the evening was they were having a wine tasting, and there were two different kind of crackers. One was a wheat base, one was a rosemary. And so one girl asked, what's the flavor of this one again? What's this one? And a guy next to her says the lighter colored cracker. And the girl who was doing the wine testing said, oh, you mean the white cracker? And the whole room went silent. And I'm the only one left. I was laughing my ass off. I thought it was funny. And then they laughed too, because they saw, it's not, you're not directing anything at me. And I know it's a comment. I thought it was brilliant. And so that's my life. And when I get called names, you go right ahead and say whatever you want about me, because it just means you're really upset about something. And I'm very sorry. So
yeah, it's like this weird, like racism to the point where you're like, your mom's feels like she has to protect this black girl.
Yeah, a little bit. And that was
she
back
hangs
in
out with a white girl,
1970.
other black girls will hate her or something like that.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen? It was back in 1970, so who knows? I don't know. And but anyways, that'll bring us full round to the segregation from before. Is I do believe that Lyndon B. Johnson was the worst president to help the African American community in so many ways. The segregation, and then the welfare bump, and all of it, just oppression after oppression.
Could you refresh me on exactly what he did? Like, what were the main kind of policies? I'm not too familiar.
The main policy was the segregation. He introduced it into legislation that segregation was going to happen. That was when the states had the rights to start busing. And then because that was
70s, these are little babies.
Yeah, that when we were little babies. I remember going to school and they were still doing
Wait. Let me get the right term. Integration. Forced integration, not segregation.
Segregation. I'm sorry. People. Thank you. Yes, forced integration.
Yeah.
And so the forced integration, like you were talking about, is earlier, I think, Robert, was what you were saying, is that that caused more fear and hatred than anything. And then when Lyndon B. Johnson also signed in a welfare raise for the inner city urban communities, the mothers of children, and the more children they have, the more money they get for it. And the opposition then was, teach them, don't feed them, teach them to feed themselves. And those are the two things that I think have, when they started off being the party for the people, that just eroded right away. And nobody seems to want to go back that far to see that those things do hurt communities, no matter what the community, no matter who or what the community is. If you start dishing it out, you also have to teach it. So it brings me forward to today, when I work in a theatrical industry where we go to schools to teach literacy programs. and we get grants to go into the inner cities. And those little kids, they don't have the Dr. Seuss books that we're acting out. They don't have Where the Wild Things Are. And yet they want to give money away to another country to help their kids. It's like, no. They just need, they just need books to read. They need someone to help them read.
Yeah.
And if the literacy program, if it goes up in the United States, it just starts there. Because if you can read, you can do anything. And that we let that go is phenomenal to me. Just phenomenal. So, and during the BLM marches, again, they were closing one of the schools in Farmington Hills, and all these people are marching. And I just want to say, take a brick and a computer and a book, march on down to Detroit and set it up. Just take the buildings can be moved, take it piece by piece. I don't care. But if you're going to march for something that actually helps the beginning stages.
It's pretty hilarious how like there's this, we're going to burn down businesses and buildings and your own impoverished community and everything. I'm convinced that that was allowed to happen too, because I think Portland, the National Guard and everything, and if there was a Democrat in office, they would have accepted that National Guard help immediately.
Well, it was the Democratic.
But
it was
that's the thing is like the Democrats and just that whole movement. It's like they don't give a fuck about black people.
I don't think so.
That's why they let a bunch of riots happen. It's just pure evil.
I just don't see the common sense that's behind it. It's just a common sense factor. And I don't, it's, I just don't understand why it has to be that I'm the bad guy because I think in common sense politics. And
that delusion, this very, very delusional, emotionally triggered, inflamed, divided.
What is wrong with America First? What is wrong with that? I mean, aren't we supposed to take care of our own backyard first? We take care of our own family first. I don't understand why. Yep, yeah. I don't. That's all there is to it. I just don't understand it.
It's very fascinating. We covered a lot of ground, I think.
Sorry, yeah.
That was some pretty insightful stuff. I mean,
well, I will make a little rebuttal, not a rebuttal, but just a
please do.
Well, one thing, it's always easier to tell what is the biblical verse like? Remove the plank in your own eye before you criticize the spoil. But in terms of, it's always also the expansion is always easier. Like when Ferdinand and Isabella came into power in Spain, they could have taken all their money and cleaned up Spain, but instead, in order to revitalize their empire, they told Columbus to go and find a new world. So that's why I think America feels like they've got to go out and try to save the world, because it's the same thing like space exploration. We could spend a lot of money trying to take care of the problems here, but we seem to have not been able to solve the problem of the human heart. So maybe we have to go out and be explorers so that we don't kill each other and waste away, but we just, the best of us will survive, or at least the most ambitious of us will survive. But maybe it's just insoluble.
True. It's probably insoluble, just like poverty. And I'm sorry to say it, but it sucks. And so
war will always be with us.
Yes, and I'll do my part.
We can do things to ameliorate it, but some people just from fate, from bad
fate,
choices, and sometimes luck, bad luck.
Yep.
So you have to learn how to deal with your lot, and you have to at least be sort of an inspiration to people to say, okay, you started out poor, but through your own initiative, you can climb out of it. Maybe you won't be a millionaire, but maybe, by the time you're 40 or 50, you can feed yourself and, take care of yourself. But you have to want that. You can't just say, oh, well, the government owes me something, or slavery, whatever, You have to say, okay, you just have to have that desire to improve.
Yeah.
There's
I grew up-
definitely that kind of victim mindset that's been, I think, encouraged by the government. They want
And
everyone to be welfare
I'm
slaves.
proud. I grew up on the poverty level. I'm proud I did because I am very resourceful because of it. I understand what's important and what's not. Doesn't mean I can't spend money like the best of them, but I married into money, and that's it. So me, Barbie, coupon clipper, thrifter, everything. Make them on my own because I can afford it. It's just so I'm proud to have grown up under the poverty level, and I'll embrace it, and I'm not going to say that out loud, but there's other things I will do. Nothing bad, nothing violent. But yeah, Robert, I agree with that as far as Columbus, but the United States started off as what's it called? We weren't interfering with anybody else. We were not we weren't going to fight anybody else's wars. We were going to be, I don't remember what the word is. And it started, our first war started with Jefferson with the pirating going on. What's Tripoli, the War of Tripoli, because they were taking Americans and it was enough. So they went in for the War of Tripoli. And ever since then, we've become the saviors of the world. And I just think we can't be the saviors of the world unless we are the saviors of ourselves first.
Well, I mean, I think in Washington wanted us to be isolationists, and just not being, factions within, didn't want us to be meddling with the world affairs. We wanted to be, we wanted to be an agrarian. I mean, this was the debate between Hamilton and was it Jefferson and Hamilton? The bankers versus the farmers.
Yep.
And the farmers lost. The bankers.
Yep.
Who,
look what the bankers have done to the farmers for years now. So,
the bank thing is particularly pernicious. It's like it's one of those things where it's so like this is the concept of it. Like, just take out this loan and then pay back the interest, and I don't know, just the whole concept of it. I'm like surprised people fall for it. I don't know, like student loans, like this. I don't know. I'm not really.
Well, this is credit. I mean, look, the idea of credit. My grandparents would never pay for anything for credit. Everything was cash. They they paid for their cars. They paid for their homes. They didn't have debt. The baby boomers. Everything is on the credit card.
Yep, I agree. I have a very popular view on that.
It's like I'm like shocked. Like, you ever had that thing?
It's immediate gratification. Because look.
Yes.
What was our grandparents' generation?
It's keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah.
Great Depression. They made sure, waste not, want not. Everything, they tube of toothpaste, you'd get through the whole thing and then you'd use it again. You'd use both sides of your toilet paper, yada, yada, yada. There's just a sense of frugality.
It's like the absurdity
being grateful. But now
I think we can blame China for that now with that mass production
like
and fast fashion.
The cheap things and everything. I actually had someone tell me, I was criticizing the whole China thing. They're like, well, aren't you grateful for all the cheap stuff you can get? I'm like, no.
They just make you buy more.
I don't care about that shit.
No.
It's really funny.
I think you gotta buy more.
Because the most impoverished generation was so frugal, and then the most prosperous generation racks up the most debt. It's like you could still buy a lot of stuff. You were very prosperous.
Yep.
Still racking up debt. Like the irony of it. It's like people really are that stereotypical, I guess. It's like watch CNN, you become watch Fox News, you become a caricature person.
I think we're due for a renewal because we have sort of the idea, the generational thing. They say that the first generation makes the wealth, the second generation shepherds the wealth, and the third generation squanders the wealth. The millennials are kind of squandering, but they're going to have to be the renewal. They're going to have to be the next greatest generation. We're going to have to tighten our belts. We're going to have to be austere, and it's going to happen all over again if we don't study our history.
Joe Biden presidency, I feel like I just kind of sense this tide of economic despair coming. We got triggered over mean tweets, and now we're signing up for maybe a couple years of some pretty bad poverty and crummy compromised economy, going to be China's bitch for a while and everything. It's like, it's the epitome of like just what a regretful generation I'm part of. I don't like millennials.
I think it's going into debt to save ourselves is one thing during the pandemic. Going into debt to save other countries, I'm just still flabbergasted that anybody can actually think that's common sense. I get being I get the philanthropy. I get being generous, gregarious, all of it. And I care about women's issues in other countries. But no, I don't need to.
Yeah, in other countries, it's pretty understandable. Where like there's some real oppression, like female genital mutilation. That's a big one.
My
genital mutilation. I'm opposed to all of it. Like fuck circumcision.
My question is, what is our agenda and what is our new industry going to be? Because are we all going to be working for Jeff Bezos and Amazon and Lyft?
I hope not.
Or all these like quirky little like
food trucks.
Gig economy.
No, it's got to be made in America.
I deliver candy bars to people in their apartments.
Because the baby boomers, I mean, if they save their money, they're fine. They're gonna retire and whatever. What the hell is Generation X and what the hell are the millennials gonna do for the next 30 years?
Skilled trades, because you're always gonna need people to heat.
Yes, that's what we need to go back down to skilled trades. The tuition, the college loans, and all of that comes from the baby boomers telling their kids you got to go to college and then paying for it.
Yeah,
or
the
getting
thing that frustrates me the most too is that like, I've always fancied myself. I think this is inherent in my personality. I've always been the artistic, intellectual type. I've always really been interested in teaching as a job. And I was working as a substitute teacher, kind of like trying to get into that field more. And now I'm just like looking at that going, this is a sinking ship, like all of it. Like the best way for me to make a fucking living is to become a plumber. Like I just feel like it's not like I'm unwilling to make a sacrifice, but like my talents are better used for, like, there's plenty of other men who are just way better suited for that career than I am.
Yep.
I'm a scatterbrained, intuitive kind of creative person, and I'm
then you better learn how to barter. You better figure out how to get that plumber, write that plumber a good theme song.
Yeah, barter's the best. No, I'm all about the barter.
Really get into that man's heart. Be like, wow, you made me a memorable song. Here's $1,000. Like,
right. Write the new Mario Brothers theme song, man. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
you're gonna. You're gonna have to endear you can either be a man of utility or you can be a man of
artistic influence. No. Let's do artistic influence. I mean, there's 3 artists right here. How can we start the influence, right?
Taking back the culture is very important for like forwarding these values. All the politics is downstream from it, So.
Yeah, I think that Robert as a filmmaker has an opportunity for influence. As a musician, songs you write, opportunity for influence. Yeah.
Well, just the fact that you're like a person who's not like the bona fide liberal NPC who's making art matters. I feel like that's a big deal. You don't have to make politically themed art necessarily. Just the fact that you're doing it and that.
Oh yes, I do.
Oh yes, you do. Oh yeah, no. Don't back down on that one.
No, you shouldn't back down on it.
All art is political.
Oh yeah, exactly. All art is political.
Political art is political.
Yes,
I agree, and it's usually anti-establishmentarianism. So why can't we be anti-establishmentarianism against the current president, or against the current establishment, or whatever you want to say? Ooh, brings me back to a point someone made earlier. I think we're talking about the news at one point, but I know this is going on and I can talk about anything, and I'm very sorry for that. The press conference with, don't laugh at me, the press conference with President Biden's press secretary. And there was I don't know who it was, but I sure would like to know which reporter kept saying the previous occupant, stripping him. The previous occupant. Yep, not saying former administration. What's that?
It makes me think people are really going to fall for that. Just like the spoiled baby boomer generation fell for like the loans and the interest and everything. I think this generation that's been deprived of like sanity because they're so confused by information war, they're really going to buy into that stuff.
They will. They're going to start. Everyone's going to start saying the former occupant.
It's like People really are that. I don't want to say stupid, but simplistic and predictable. Like,
talk about taking away the integrity of an office. That does it right there. And if anybody can't see that, I don't know what they're looking at. I really don't.
It's pretty. It's, on one hand, it makes me feel better to see that those people. It's kind of fucked up to say, but on one hand, those people who buy that stuff, they're going to suffer for it, just like the baby boomers who got themselves into just terrible debt suffered for it. But they also like get rewarded for it, which is really fucked up. That's an existential threat to me because I'm like, okay, yeah. So you say you parrot the establishment memes, and then you get all the social support and everything, and then someone like me, there's an attempt to deperson me, in certain ways, and it's like. On the other hand, they just suffer like at like this deeper level that kind of hurts in the long run.
That's why they're so angry.
Like when you take out a loan, you might get ahead in the short term, but in the long term, you're gonna be way down by debt. While someone like me who wouldn't take out a loan, I don't get all that inflated success.
You don't have the big car and the big TV and the big house and keeping up with the Joneses.
You got to play the long game. It's pretty discouraging. People are gonna, good little puppets. They're gonna get up into the upper echelons pretty quickly, but they're gonna have to sell their soul to do it, and that will come with consequences. Hopefully.
And then we're back to
I don't want you to succeed.
Talking about selling your soul. You're back to your musician. There we go. You guys, this has been awesome, and I know I'm on the road traveling, and so that's why remotely. I am in the home of I'm with my girlfriend in the home of her father, and they've been kind enough to listen to me blah 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 this whole time. My girlfriend is she is of like mind. I think that her father may have different opposing views, and I just want to thank them for letting me in their home and talk my heart and listen to you. And it's just, we'll have some good conversations after this.
We'll have him on the show next time.
What's that?
We'll have to have him on the show next time.
We will have him on the show next time if he's willing. Yeah, he can do it remotely. We're driving his car down to Florida, and he has a home down there too. So he's a awesome man, very, very, very opinionated in his own right, and very educated with his opinion, or so my girlfriend says. But anyways, they're eating their dinner, and I'm missing it, and it looks awesome because there's rice and black-eyed peas, and so I need to eat, or this girl's going to go off rail. So this has been such a privilege, and I appreciate your inviting me on, and I'm cutting it short, maybe, or maybe I was the one that made it go long.
We've been going for quite a long time. We've got
I know. Yeah, I think I was the one that made it go over. So I'm going to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. And like I said, I can talk about anything. And
skin on it.
I'd love to be invited back. Let's just say if you'd have me. So, yep. Okay. I think you need a female perspective on this, like the new view. Ooh, another subject. Yeah, the new view.
We didn't really dive into the gender issues so much, except for the biological sex differences, but there's probably quite a lot of stuff we could dive into of that.
Especially from a girl who doesn't go for it, someone who has her own mind on what she thinks about everything and doesn't just go pro-feminism on everything,
Yeah,
So,
you ever hear of Karen Strong?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Karen Strong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huge game changer for me.
Yep. I get it.
Yeah, people called me a sexist misogynist because I listened to like gender queer atheist women on anti-feminism.
It was like $10,000.
Yeah, it's insane.
Punk rock. It is. It's all of it. Yeah. They'll call you an Archie Bunker sexist for it, but it's actually punk rock.
Yeah, I can't believe you said Archie Bunker. I was just talking about him earlier. Like the Archie Bunker chair you don't sit in. So.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And thank you for respecting my opinion, letting me have a voice. And I'll see you. Robert, I'll see you soon. Jason, I hope I get to meet you in person soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will.